Have you recently noticed that more websites are suddenly asking you to prove who you are before you can watch a video, leave a comment, download an app, or even just scroll freely like you used to? Maybe it starts with a pop-up asking for your age, then it quietly escalates into a request for a selfie, a government ID, or a digital wallet confirmation. Now, at first glance, it feels harmless, almost routine. But when you look at the bigger picture, something is clearly happening. The internet is now slowly but firmly asking for your papers. And this shift didn't happen overnight, even though it feels so. For some context, over the last year, governments across the world have begun tightening rules around online age verification, all under the banner of protecting minors. Australia moved first, expanding its Social Media Minimum Age Act to block under-16s from platforms like YouTube. The UK followed with laws demanding robust age checks for access to adult or sensitive material. The EU began testing standardized age verification systems. In the US, several states rolled out their own versions, each framed as a necessary safeguard for children. Now, to put it into perspective, this is one of the fastest global policy convergences the internet has ever seen. Now, you would think that tech companies would fight this tooth and nail. After all, age restrictions shrink user bases, reduce ad impressions, and create friction in growth funnels. It's one thing to regulate banks or airlines, but it's another thing to regulate platforms that live and die by scale. Take YouTube, for example. Instead of waiting for governments to force manual ID uploads, it's rolling out AI systems that guess your age based on your viewing behavior. Watch patterns, engagement signals, content preferences, even how you interact with comments can now be used to place you into an age bracket. If the system decides you're under a certain threshold, your account quietly changes. Certain videos disappear, ads become limited, and comments and uploads are restricted. And if you want full access back, there's one clear path forward. Verify your age with official identification. Now, if that sounds invasive, it's because it is, but it's also strategic. On the surface, the justification is simple and emotionally powerful: to protect the children. This exact framing has been used repeatedly throughout history to push through policies the public would otherwise be uncomfortable with. Protecting children is one of the most powerful political shields there is, because when you think about it, nobody really wants to be on record opposing it. Social media companies are already unpopular, and lawmakers know this. It might also interest you to know that, according to multiple surveys, most adults say they support stricter controls on how kids use social media, which makes this legislation socially defensible. But you and I know that if that was the whole story, we wouldn't see tech companies leaning into it so eagerly. Now, here's where the business logic kicks in. Because from a pure risk perspective, this makes no sense for tech companies. Think about this. At the same time these laws were being rolled out globally, one of the worst data breach periods in recent memory was unfolding. Recently, an app that required women to verify their identity using government ID stored those documents on an unsecured server, resulting in tens of thousands of IDs being leaked. Login credentials from platforms like Google, Apple, and Telegram surfaced in massive dumps. And all of this happened within weeks. It's public knowledge that every company holding personal data is exposed to regulatory risk, legal liability, and brand damage. For some comparison, a single large-scale data breach can wipe billions off a company's market value in days. So why would tech companies voluntarily push for a system that forces them to handle even more sensitive information? The answer is simple. There is money in identity. And when I say money, I mean a lot of it. Now, at first glance, you might assume this is about data collection, that companies want your ID so they can target ads better. But that's very far from the main picture. After all, if you use the internet regularly, platforms already know more about you than your passport and driver's license ever will. Your browsing habits, location patterns, device fingerprints, purchase history, and behavioral signals build a profile far more detailed than anything printed on plastic. So what do they really stand to gain? Well, the real motivation is infrastructure control. Companies like Google, Apple, and Amazon are quietly building what they call digital credential ecosystems. Now, about a year ago, Google launched its Digital Credentials API, allowing websites to request verified information like age or identity through a Google-managed wallet. The pitch is simple. Instead of giving your ID to hundreds of websites, you verify once with Google, and Google verifies you everywhere else. Of course, on the surface, this sounds efficient, even safer depending on how you look at it. You only upload your ID once, which means fewer databases store it, fewer leaks, and less friction. But on the other hand, this also means one company becomes the gatekeeper of your digital identity. If that wasn't a red flag already, let's push it further. I don't know if you're aware that once identity is centralized, it can be bundled. It can be age verification today, financial eligibility tomorrow, and health credentials next year. Notwithstanding, according to the law, companies would only request what is necessary, but necessity has a funny way of expanding. From a business standpoint, the upside is massive. Verified identity removes friction, removes checkout steps, removes forms, and even doubt. Imagine logging into a website and instantly being pre-approved for credit, subscriptions, or regulated services without additional checks. That is conversion optimization on a scale marketers dream about. For platforms like Google, this also strengthens their ad business. Financial services, pharmaceuticals, and gaming are some of the most lucrative ad categories, but they are also heavily regulated. Verified identity unlocks those markets at scale and also gives companies leverage. Sites that don't integrate these systems start to feel outdated, suspicious, and less trustworthy. And if this feels familiar, that's because we've seen it before. You don't have to think hard to notice that PayPal didn't just make payments easier, it also made itself unavoidable. And now, identity is following the same path. However, there's a problem. What if I told you that many people don't actually want this? Few surveys consistently show that most users prefer anonymity online. Left to their own choices, they would not voluntarily sign up for a digital ID system. And tech knows this, which is why they influence how compliance works by offering the easiest way to comply. By offering the easiest way to comply, I mean they create the problem and sell the solution. Google has openly referenced EU digital identity frameworks as justification for its credential system, despite being deeply involved in lobbying around those same regulations. If YouTube asks you for ID next week, you won't feel like you're entering a new system. You'll feel like you're just clicking through a prompt, but functionally, you've crossed a line. Now, you might think there are strong legal protections against misuse, and to some extent there are. Data protection laws exist, and privacy frameworks exist, but enforcement varies wildly by country, and regulatory capture is a real concern. When the same companies shaping the laws are the ones implementing the solutions, the line between public interest and corporate interest becomes blurry. And there's even a perspective we haven't explored yet. Do governments benefit too? Yes, they do. Verified identities mean easier and better tracking of illegal activity, easier compliance, easier monitoring and enforcement. From tax collection to content moderation to law enforcement requests, identity-linked internet activity simplifies governance. That doesn't automatically mean abuse, but it does change the balance of power. So what does all this mean for the average internet user? In the short term, more pop-ups, more verification prompts, more moments where your access depends on compliance. In the medium term, a gradual normalization of identity-based internet use. And in the long term, a completely different relationship between users, platforms, and the digital world. And here's the uncomfortable question we haven't fully asked yet. Is it even legal to make identification a prerequisite for participation in digital life? Well, the answer depends on jurisdiction, interpretation, and how narrowly laws are written. But legality has never stopped technological momentum before. However, whether this ends up being a net positive or one of the biggest ideological transformations of the internet depends on how it's implemented, who oversees it, and how much power users retain. Thanks for watching. For more interesting business queries like this, subscribe to our channel and check out our earlier videos. If you'd like to know the real reason why Google doesn't have a real social media platform, watch this video on your screen right now.